touches on the ball, getting our heart rate going and everything like that in a technical environment. I'm zipping the ball in. We're challenging first touch, making sure that, guys get their shanks out of the way. Right. And, I probably didn't explain this exercise well enough out on the field because we're not doing exactly what I want. This is, now we start going, touch play. I want them tempo. I want them getting the ball down on the ground, orient their body to the next server, and then just doing it quickly. And if you see, everything is movements in about a 2-yard space, right? They start picking up the pace a little bit. We start going one touch, getting touches on the ball. This is just activation and a little bit of technical development, technical preparation for them for when they actually get into the session with the team as well. Because, we like to, our team likes to have possession of the ball. We use our goalkeepers in an efficient manner as far as that goes. So they've got to get touches with their feet before they go in with the team, or else, the head coach is going to look at me and be like, why did he misplay that pass? That look where the head coach looks at the goalkeeping coach down the bench. I'll get that.
Oh yeah. I know that one.
Suska's very familiar with that.
I think we all are at this point.
But don't worry, because Suska's going to have to. Hey, Susk, you're going to be the head coach though in a couple weeks at TST, so you're going to have to. I got nobody. Turn your head to the goalkeeper.
No, I don't. It's just me. I think I'm like the lone soldier out there. So.
Oh my gosh, that's congratulations, by the way, on that. That's gonna be a lot of fun. So yeah, Chris, I don't know if you know this, but Saskia is going to be she's going to be the one in charge at the TST at the soccer tournament for the Angel City Sevens team.
Okay. There you go. Lots of yelling, storming up and down the sidelines. That's what I need to see.
I'm like seven. It's like I'm like. They're all professionals too that they brought in. So I was like, at first I thought it was going to be like developmental players, and I was like, oh my gosh. But now it's I know it's a lot of the players, so it'll be fun. We had a blast last year when I was there with the US team. So
good.
Yeah, it'll be good.
I mean, I'm excited for that. And if guys,
I'm like, look, I'm not gonna like. I think I meet them one day, and then we go. So nothing's getting fixed in a weekend.
So it's like that's like ODP or like all-star teams.
How much coaching is it going to be other than organizing substitutes and stuff? It's like, go play. You know how to play small-sided. You know how to play soccer. Go play. Some technical stuff, but they'll be fine.
Well, that's actually an interesting thing, Sus, that you just brought up there before we kind of get back to these sessions right here, Chris, is that when you're talking about at your level, I'm sure loans is something that's very common, at that level. And you might have a guy fly in on a Thursday from another club and he's starting on Saturday. So it's like, you don't even want, I mean, you're in the middle of the season. You're like, do you even want to bring anything up? You just want to leave it alone, right?
Well, I mean, again, I haven't experienced that part. When I was in Orlando, we had a couple guys loaned down on season-long loans. And then you had a couple guys that got dropped down the day before a game. So, and the same thing at Miami, it was one of those where the first team will loan down players. We always tell our guys, you have to be flexible. You have to be, you have to prepare as if you're going to be playing, prepare as if you're the starter on the day, but things can happen. And, for us, I don't think you're going to see much in the way of loans. We've got 3 goalkeepers signed, but if something like that happens, it would be one of those where I'd have an honest conversation, hey, this is happening. I don't expect you to absolutely love what's happening, but it's happening. And it's not, it's not always, my decision. It's not always your decision. You have to live with it. And that's part of being a pro. Because at a moment's notice, you can have the rug pulled out from underneath you,
Yeah. I think for me, there's some technical things about playing in this tournament that, I'm glad I was actually there last year and then we got our ass handed to us because we played in the men's division because there was no women's division. But there's some things. There's the fundamental things that like how to play this situation, how to make the most of these smaller goals in tight, what kind of system you want to play and stuff like that. But other than that, it is short term and I trust these professionals to be able to handle it themselves and work things out themselves. So
getting back to the meat and potatoes right here, Chris, of the session, I see that you're adding some shot stopping elements into this as well too.
Yeah.
Interesting what you said in regards to the feet, because like, I can't tell you how many times, especially at the youth level, I see this as like, oh no, they're going to work on foot skills with their team. They're going to work on foot skills with their team. And then like and I think a lot of the times they're just like assuming it's like magically through doing foot skills with the team, they're going to learn how to play possession in the back. It's like, but especially like at 9s and 10s, they're doing a lot of like, foundational work on just, dribbling with the ball and passing with the ball, but it's not necessarily pass back situations or escape situations.
Yeah. I mean, I try and make everything as relative as to the actions that they're going to have to execute in a game under pressure, under light pressure, under heavy pressure. So right now, obviously, they're playing around, they're receiving, they've got to take a good first touch. They got to check their shoulder to know that they can play out the opposite side. Because that's what the game demands. I mean, a lot of times you receive from one center back, you play it to the opposite center back. You receive from an outside back, you play around to the opposite side, trying to get to shift the opposition. And sometimes it's, you're going to be able to stay in one position. Sometimes you're going to have to drop off to give yourself a little bit more time. And you'll see that, probably in the next round or so, when, Amal, who's the goalkeeper will do it. And then Nico, the goalkeeper on the far side, will do it as well. They'll drop off into that nice little pocket of the 3 triangles of the mannequins, touch across, because that simulates the highest vertical threat for them pressing, and then playing around. Then they have to get back in front, and then they're going to be hitting the ground. Nico likes to hit the ground anyway. So, but it's those where I'm not going to do everything they're going to see, but, the next time it might be, all right, well, you're going to touch, and then you're going to play through, into a mini goal instead of play around, just vary it into those types of things. And, in the session as well, there's times where I'll have them starting central. Like if we're doing a crossing session, they start central and they have to lift a ball to me in a wider area. So I'm working on their ability to play that, that pass where they receive, touch out, and then they have to clip it into an outside back or hit the third line into a winger. So we're getting all those touches and those elements, but they're specific to goalkeepers. When you take a goalkeeper and you put him in a possession, you're asking him to be more of a lot of times asking him to be more of a field player. So when are you actually getting those elements that are really specific to what a goalkeeper is going to have to execute in a game? Because, in a game, this is their vantage point. This is their what they're going to be looking at and what they're going to be seeing. So let's put them in that type of a situation, ask them to perform their tasks, and coach them through it so they can be successful.
I love what you just said right there, Chris, because, Susk, I think one of the things I've seen, especially at the youth level, is that, I see, the young player, come back, and now he's playing kind of like a center mid in goal, because that's how he's learned how to play soccer. No one's really actually brought up with him how to play out of the back, how to play possession out of the back, how to break lines, all that sort of thing. So he's just dribbling around trying to escape and stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that for development and everything like that. But like at some point, they have to understand the demands of the position they're in currently. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And listen, everybody comes from somewhere, right? So I'd rather have a kid that actually knows how to play with the ball at their feet and everything like that. And I can wrangle them in and kind of have them learn the disciplines of the position with the technical skills I have, rather than starting from somebody that can't kick or has no concept of it whatsoever. So I think it, young players out there that are playing field and are playing goal. I'm talking about youth, are playing field, are playing goal, are confident with their feet. And, it's just an added skill, because back in the day, and Chris, this probably too, like I played both, but most keepers didn't. Right. So the only thing keepers knew is goalkeeping. And back then the rules were different. You could pick the ball and pass back and stuff. But that's all. So keepers didn't have those technical skills. of actually being confident and playing with their feet. You could dial it down, but to start from scratch and build it up is difficult as well. But any position, and especially goalkeeping, understanding that and seeing the field and understanding when to bypass lines, when to play short, not to force it, when to just fire long and live to fight another day. It takes training, it takes playing games and everything. So
Chris, I've got a question for you because, before we kind of get back into these right here, like how much time do you spend on prep touch? Because personally, I feel that it's something that's, especially at the younger ages, it's something that's very, very much lacked. And then you get players that get to the college level and their prep touch is all over the place. And they're wondering why they can't, why they can't find this player, why they find that player. Is it because they didn't sit themselves in a position where they're going to be able to play a clean ball?
Oh, I mean, with us, when I'm coaching in a lot of stuff, when they're getting touches with their feet, almost everything we do, I ask them to do two touch because they've got to be able to settle and control the ball. I mean, how many times do you see a center back zip a ball in and it's got a weird topspin on it? There's times you play back to the goalkeeper where it's very clean and comfortable. But there's times that you play back to the goalkeeper because you've got a defender on your back and you can't turn, right? And you're panicked and you hit a poor quality ball. They've got to be.
Welcome to the Keeper Institute podcast. My name is Tori Corsaro. I'm a strength and conditioning and goalkeeper coach here at the Keeper Institute and your host for today's show. The Keeper Institute is a unique goalkeeper training facility in New Jersey aimed at developing better goalkeepers and better people. On this podcast, we will be discussing all things goalkeeping, character development, and more.
Welcome back to another episode of the Keeper Institute podcast. I am quite literally on with one of my favorite humans on this earth. And we are going to have an episode. I always say it's like just so awesome, but we're going to have a really awesome episode because I think it's something that people really want to hear, and it's good for all kinds of transitions as well. But without further ado, I'm with my good friend, Caroline Delisle, and we're going to be talking about the transition from playing in college to going pro and like kind of some of the biggest surprises and takeaways and learning lessons from that.
Yes, ma'am. There are plenty to be talked about. So happy to be here. Happy to talk about it.
Yeah. So before we start though, Caroline, give the people just a wee background on yourself.
Just a wee background. I grew up in Tampa, went to school at UCF in Orlando, was there for 6 whole years. So that was good. Spent 6 years there. Yep. It was a solid chunk. I got my master's there and stuff. And then I went and spent almost a year in San Diego with the Wave. Had a really great experience there. And now I've just moved to Sweden. And so we are on week number 4 in Sweden because, things like this happen in life, apparently. So here we are.
Yeah, the life of a professional athlete. You never know where you're going to end up, and you never know when you're going to get there. But it's exciting nonetheless, and it sounds like it's been 4 weeks of learning and growing already.
Yes, lots of that. Trying to learn Swedish. It's not easy, but we're working on it. But yeah, so an adjustment in every sense of the word, but we're doing the dang thing, so can't complain.
Yeah, we are. I think this is, like I said and kind of alluded to, this is an important topic because no matter if you're going from club to college or college to pro, whatever that next jump is, there's always learning lessons and transitions because when you bump up a level, things become challenging and there's new challenges and new ways that you have to apply your game. So I think that this is something that, can be really useful to college goalkeepers who are looking to make that jump to pro. But even if you're a youth goalkeeper who's going from, like your town team to a club team, your club team to an ECNL team, like there's going to be valuable insights from Caroline that are going to be really helpful for you in your next jump. So let's get into it. What's one of those things? So you said you had 3 things that you're kind of thinking about. Jump into that first one for us.
Yeah, I feel like my first one is something that I've always valued, and I'm thankful to have parents that kind of like set the scene for me in this. But I think especially when going into college and then college to pro was like know who you are and know what you enjoy outside of soccer. Like my parents always preached like having balance and stuff. And so it was huge, but I think especially coming into the pro environment, like I had somebody tell me this right before I went to San Diego, and it was so true of like in college, you're in high school, it's like you're in classes all day and then you're going to training and then you're trying to see your friends and you're busy and your schedule is packed out. And so you really don't have time to think about like, what do I want to do today? Like, that's not really a question you ever like ask yourself. And so I think being in the pro environment, one of the biggest things is like, you have a lot of free time. And if you don't have that balance and that kind of like mental, just like stability in like who you are and what you like to do outside of soccer, you could sit and think about and ruminate on soccer all day long. And I've watched teammates really struggle with it, where it's like, oh, I just can sit here and just kind of think about training or think about the game or not really know what the heck to do and just sit there all day. And so I think one of the biggest things was just like explore things outside of soccer and have interests and find value and find things that give you life outside of soccer, because for just the simple thing of like, you'll have time at times, like you'll have the time to do it and you need to know what brings you life, but also just that balance of football can be so consuming in any level and can be stressful, and we care and we're goalkeepers, so we're perfectionists, and so it can be consuming in all the ways. And so I think just finding those things that can bring you out of that and then bring you life in ways that off the pitch that can't be touched by football, I think is so important.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think that it's something that you really don't think about until you kind of face it head on, because like you said, your schedule is jam-packed. When you play competitive soccer, I feel like it could be as early as like 10 years old. You're just running from one thing to the next. And even if you're just playing multiple sports, like your schedule doesn't really allow for much time. And it's one of those things that if you're not intentional about it, it kind of just smacks you straight in the face. So I do think that's what a good shout. The more you can kind of think about it, the more you take the time to like journal and talk about it and kind of just, for lack of a better word, discover yourself and fully understand these different parts of yourself, the happier you can be in the long run, because you have something to like fall back on. That's not just, oh, today was a bad soccer day, so it's a bad day. It's, okay, I didn't have my best practice. However, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. And this doesn't define me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like, especially coming into the professional spaces, like being like, soccer won't be forever. Like, we are not blessed like other professional athletes to be set for life. Like, we very much will have a career after this. And so it's like using this time, like when I was in San Diego, really used it to be like, okay, I want to get experience in, I had a second job of doing like sports performance stuff and really taking advantage of that time. And so I think just keeping a like an outlook of down the line and being able to set yourself up for the future as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant and so helpful. And it doesn't matter if you're young or if you're in college or if you're headed to the pros, like that's something that you can kind of chip away at right now. And this is a shameless plug. Coach Chris is running her bulletproof webinars again. And I think that's just an awesome way to kind of do exactly what Caroline is talking about. It's working on that mental side of the game with intention, just like you work on your strength in the gym, just like you work on your technical, tactical stuff on the field. Like, you have to put time aside for the mental side of the game and like that personal development.
Absolutely.
So shout out
Absolutely.
to that. If you haven't signed up, sign up.
Yes. And I will second that. Like, even just having resources for that, like so many, I feel like, of people, Tori, like my age and your age, are like, we just kind of figured out as we went. And usually that was a lot of like self-destruction and then like figuring out after, trying to like put the pieces back together. So I'm like, having resources like Chris, who are like so knowledgeable and just such good people in that space, like use that. Like, you have been blessed and highly favored. Use it, build that resource, because it's so important. So another shameless plug.
Snap, snap, snaps. All right, Caroline, hit us with number 2. Number 1 was golden.
Yes. Thank you. I set the bar high for myself. This is something that I am still actively actively learning. But in a broad, like in every sense, in every age and every whatever, everyone's journey to where they are is so different. I think like in going from college to the pros, I think in college, it's like the process is pretty streamlined in the US. Like, you know, you play a club, you get scouted, you get recruited, you end up at a college. I think getting into the pros and playing at a really high level, it's like there's can be some insecurity of being like, oh, I've never been to a national team camp. I didn't win a national championship. I didn't play at a massive school. I don't have all these accolades pretty much. And I think the journey can just look so different for everyone getting to where they are. And so, I mean, comparison's the thief of joy in every situation, but I think this is just such a tangible one where it's like, it's so easy to be like, oh, I've never been called into a national, I didn't make it out of my state team. Like, you know, it's just so easy to kind of get in your head about that. And so I think just like being confident in the idea that if you're there for a reason, and like act like it. Like, it's like I could sit here and be insecure and be comparing myself and putting my like stats and my history against everyone else's. But at the end of the day, it's like we're both here. And I think just going from there and taking it day by day and what's in front of you and not getting stuck in this spiral of, oh, they have this, I don't have that, you know, just all that jazz. So I think just understanding that comparison gets you nowhere, and just like, if you're there for a reason.
That hits different, because I'll tell you what, I think I spent a lot of my career, both collegiately and then as I tried to play professionally, just feeling insecure because of my comparison and
Absolutely.
How much did I rob myself of an experience to like really step back and be like, wow, this is really cool, but also the opportunity to just continue to develop. How can I get better? How could I have like gotten better if I was just sitting there being like, wow, I played at a Division II school, or I'm too small, this, that, and like my comparison really did rob me. And like, there's no better phrase than comparison is the thief of joy, because I spent a lot of time not enjoying myself because I was doing that comparison game. And not only that, but it's exhausting. You can't mentally and physically keep up with it.
Exactly. And like, I think that was a really good learning for me being in San Diego. Like, I was a training player in San Diego, and I think in the beginning it was like I'd mess up or I'd, you know, like not have a good day. And it's like, oh, this is why I'm a training player. Like, I would use it against myself somehow. And it's just like, there's just no need. Like, I'm in the environment and like they do a really good job of treating me as an equal. And so I'm like, treat myself as an equal. Like, there's no need for me to use this like label or this like comparison to like just tear myself down when like nobody else is. And so it's like, you know, we're always working on being kinder to ourselves. And so I think just like not giving ourselves things to use against ourselves.
Gosh, that could be its own podcast or its own like sub point here of being kinder to yourself and like how to work on being
you and I
kinder
can
to
go on
yourself.
a long tangent about that.
For sure. It's just like, I don't know, when you're not kind to yourself, you literally get nothing out of it. And you honestly probably take away from not only yourself, but others, because you're so in your head. And like, I don't know. I think it's a really good point. And I think that it's something that everybody needs to hear. It doesn't matter if you're a parent of a goalkeeper, if you're a coach, if you're a player, if you're just someone out on the street that happened to choose to listen to the Keeper Institute podcast. That is something that is so relevant in our life to just help us continue to grow and transition into the next phase of life, not even just college to pro.
Absolutely. 1000%.
All right. Words of wisdom, Caroline Delisle. What's point number 3?
Point number 3 is it can be so intimidating going into a new environment. And in college and pros, I mean, I walked into San Diego with Alex Morgan and Kaylin Sheridan and Abby Dahlkemper, and I'm like, I don't want to speak. Like, I don't like, you know. And so I think like my biggest learning was like, number 1, be a good teammate to yourself. Like, be your own biggest fan, because going into these new environments, it's not always going to be like encouragement, and like you're going to be called to a higher standard. And a lot of times that can feel like you're being like, there's a lot of coaching that can happen, and that can feel like, oh, I'm not doing anything right. I'm not like good at this, but it's like, no, you're just learning. And so I think being like your own biggest fan, but then I think like being a good teammate is just so valuable. And like nobody doesn't want to be heard and seen and encouraged. And so it's like we can walk into a new environment and be like, oh, I hope someone sees like me, or someone's encouraging to me. And it's like, be that person, and that will come back to you. Like, I think it's especially going into new environments, like walking in as a rookie and being like, oh, like, I'm just kind of going to feel it out. I'm going to see like who kind of initiates that to me. And it's like, nobody, especially being like as a pro, it's like, we're all adults. Like nobody's like going to be weird about it. Like everyone just wants to, like, nobody's going to be like, stop encouraging me, please. Like, that's just, everyone likes it. And so it's like bringing positivity into an environment is like universal. Like that can be so easy to do. And then like, usually it comes back to you. And so I think we all, like, as rookies or as new people, like come in and are like, oh, everyone's been in an environment where there's somebody that's so kind. And I've been blessed with so many people who are older and have welcomed young people well. And I think as like the new people in the group, you're always kind of looking for that person. And it's like such a blessing when that happens. But it's also like we can be those people even as new people in an environment, even as new teammates. And so I think just like leaning into that and being a good teammate to yourself and to your team, obviously, is just so valuable and something that is so controllable. And I think just the like goodness that we put out into our team, into the world, ultimately comes back to us. And so it's like, we can be timid to do that, but it's just like, go for it. Like nobody doesn't want a good teammate, you know?
For sure. And as you're talking about this one, I can't help but think about like points 1 and 2. It's so hard to be a good teammate if you are just sitting there in a comparison game. And I think that like the more that you can be present and be like, I'm here for a reason. I'm here as part of my journey. And like, this is who I am as a person, to bring it back to point 1. Point 3 becomes really attainable. And it's funny because you're like, oh, no one's going to look at you being like, oh, please stop encouraging me. Okay. Like, right. I can't think of a single person who would say that, to be quite honest with you, especially at that level where like it is a business in a sense, and everyone wants to feel seen and like wants to be like supported as they're going through. Well, it can be a really difficult journey because sports are tumultuous, and sports are something that are like can really bring you through ups and downs. So it's having that, and having that teammate is something that brings you back to baseline and keeps you level and kind of prevents these inside. And I think that is just the most amazing point, and it's probably one of my favorite things. And hearing you talk about it, Jill's not with us today, obviously, but hearing you talk about it reminds me a lot of Jill. And when she talks about her experience on the national team, and she was like, I just wanted to be the exemplar teammate, and I wanted to be the person that no matter if you were having your best game or your worst game, you knew that I could be your shoulder to lean on. And that at the end of the day, like people would look back on my career and be like, Jill was an excellent teammate. And I think that you echo a very similar sentiment. And I think that's going to take you very, very far in your career, but also in your life, because the more you can be that person for others, I think that the more value you add to everything around you. So I love that point. I think it's incredible. And I do think it speaks volumes of who you are. And not just that, but honestly, these big 3, they sound probably like, oh, that's simple, I can do that. But without the work, all 3 of these aren't as attainable. So I think just to recap for the people, point number 1, know who you are. Point number 2, this is your journey. You need to own your journey and not play the comparison game. Point number 3, be a really, really great teammate.
Absolutely.
Is there any other like insight you want to leave for the people before we sign off with a question?
Any other insight? I don't think so. I think that's it.
Drop the bombs. You don't have to give any more when you drop bombs like that, girl. All right, Caroline. Because this is just who we are. We're silly goofy. I need you to tell me, because we always end this thing with a question. I don't know if you know that, but I need you to tell me one thing that has made you like belly laugh recently, like something in the past or like semi-recently that you're like, I could not get it together because of this.
That's a good one. I feel like the first thing that comes to mind, like you said, we are very silly, goofy. I like can't take myself seriously most of the time. And so when I was in San Diego, being my strength coach, shout out to Roy, my guy, like I was in the gym. He was like standing in the door frame. And I refused to let the whip and a dab die. Like they will never die on my watch. And so he was, exactly. Mini dab. I've been spreading the mini dab around San Diego. Now I need to bring it to Sweden. It's a whole thing. And so he was at the door frame. I was standing there and I make eye contact with him and I start to like aggressively whip, like full body send. As I got like to the initiation phase of the whip, Alex Morgan turns the corner. And I'm like, I'm committed at this point. And she looks directly at me. And like, Alex, we don't like talk like that. Like she's very nice, great teammate, but we were not like silly goofy together. And so she turns the corner and looks at me and I'm mid whip and I can't stop at this point. Like it would just be weird. And so I like fully looking her dead in the eyes, just like aggressively whip. And I could have just like walked away, not addressed it. But naturally I look her dead in the eyes and I go, she like kind of chuckled and I go, oh, you like that? and I walk away. Like I walk out the door. Oh, you like that? Exit. Like, I think I blacked out in the moment because I like got her on the corner and I was like, what have I just done? I was just like, that's horrendous. That's awful for me. And so, but very on brand, very, I don't even really know. So my retelling of that has been quite comical. Because it's just like, why is that what I chose in that moment? So that's a good one. Reliving that one is a good. Alex, if you hear this, I would never forget my dab or my whip. Sorry.
What a performance! That's so good. Yeah. I mean, I'm losing it over here. Yeah. I have two, but I'm gonna go with this one because I just think it's so funny. We were playing this game and we have a center back who was a 6 for us for majority of her career, and we moved her to center back this year, and she's just lights out at center back. Like, why didn't we make her a center back earlier type deal? And we're winning this game 1-0, and time's going on in the second half, and one of our players ends up drawing a foul in the box, and we get a PK, and our 2 center backs, like, not involved in the play at all. They're up the field, but they're, like, on our defensive half, not involved at all. But you look back at them, and they just, like, they're celebrating, fist bumping, and then they do a chest bump mid-match, and they're like, yeah! And it looked like some kind of, like, Bash Brothers out of, like, a superhero movie. And then they just, like, celebrate. We take the PK, we score, and they celebrate again. You would have thought that one of them just, like, scored a goal the way they celebrated about drawing a PK that they weren't involved in. And it brings me so much joy to think about, and it made the 3 of us on staff laugh so hard.
Absolutely. Chest bumps are underrated. Morgan Messner and I can hit a solid chest bump, and we did many a time mid-training. So I fully support them in any context. Mid-game is chef's kiss. 10 out of 10. Fully support.
Chef's kiss. I love a good chest bump. I think they're great. I like it when someone that's bigger than me does a chest bump, and I almost fall on my butt.
Yeah. That's fair. I haven't experienced that, but I'll find like an offensive lineman or something to do it with and see how I can find that situation as well.
All right. Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining us and listening in. Like I said, I think these 3 things are super important no matter what level you're transitioning into. And Caroline, thank you for your time and really appreciate it. you guys, as always, we'll catch you later.
Thanks for having me. Blessings.